Aviation-Quest.cc 101, wind 270 degrees, 10 knots, runway 27 left, cleared for takeoff.
Aviation-Quest.cc 101, cleared for takeoff, 27 left. V1, rotate. Positive climb.
Aviation-Quest.cc, stories from above. The views shared in this podcast are personal and for informational purposes only. They do not reflect any employer or aviation authority, and nothing discussed here should be considered flight training or regulatory guidance. Please always refer to official sources. This episode may also contain product placement. For further information, visit our website Aviation-Quest.cc.
This is already Aviation-Quest.cc episode 26. I'm your host Jürgen Reis, and my second host in command, like usual, Stefan. Welcome to the show.
Hey Jürgen, how are you?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say it's a treat and a surprise because today's episode brings us someone who represents continuity in flight simulation. Our guest is Martyn Northall from JustFlight in the UK. And JustFlight is one of those names that has quietly shaped serious flight simulation for decades, from early magazine-driven era to today's highly complex simulator ecosystems. And Martyn has been part of that journey for many years, working at the intersection of product development, realism, and community expectations. Martyn, it's a real pleasure to have you as the star guest today at Aviation-Quest.cc. Thank you for your time.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It's great to be here.
And yeah, I mean, for me, I think, Stefan, you know Marty much better than I do. So I think you are today. I said in the beginning or in our private conversation, I take the jump seat in the podcast cockpit today. And you too certainly go into the front. And I'm looking forward to have an exciting interview. But before that, do you mind, Stefan, to also talk today a little bit about the YouTube movie you made for our podcast? We are an audio podcast, but we are also on YouTube at Aviation-Quest podcast. And yeah, I'm looking forward to you. What's there today in the background of the podcast?
Yes, so as always, if you watch this on YouTube, you will see a real-world flight recreated in Microsoft Flight Simulator. And today I decided to go back in time. We will be flying the good old MD-11, and we will be recreating one of the very first commercial services of that aircraft. One of the launch customers was Swissair. So we have an MD-11 in the beautiful chocolate brown livery, and we'll be flying it from Zurich to Hamburg, which was one of the first flights they did to train their pilots. As you will see, I still struggle a bit with the landing on the MD-11. It's an amazing aircraft, but it has one major flaw. It is not an Airbus.
We are lucky that you're a real world professional A320 captain. Oh, sorry, you're a pilot. You're a first officer. And I'd say the captain today on this podcast flight is Martyn. And as I said, if you want, Stefan, you can already get into the main part of the interview. I mean, JustFlight is, I think, a name everybody who didn't live under a rock, flight simulation wise, the last decades is quite familiar with. And Stefan, please take over.
Yes, certainly. So also from my side, a very warm welcome to you, Martyn. And thank you for taking the time to talk to us. It's a pleasure to have you here. I would like to ask with something, if you ever meet someone at a party and they would ask you, so what is it you actually do? How would you reply to that question?
Yeah, that is a difficult one. I do get asked that quite a lot. Only a couple of days ago, someone at my daughter's school asked me that. And I usually start by saying sort of video game development / aviation / flight simulation. You say video game development and people think of, GTA and Call of Duty, and you say aviation and people think you're a pilot. So it's sort of trying to explain the kind of niche area we're in is always quite tricky. But yeah, kind of combination between video game development and aviation.
Okay, very good. Yeah, I can imagine it's probably one of those jobs that's very niche, and I guess your day-to-day role will change all the time depending on what you're just working on. So I
Yeah.
guess I could imagine you don't even have such a thing as a typical day. Is that right?
Yeah, no, I don't really. No, every project is different and every day is different. And obviously the environment we're in keeps changing with new versions of Flight Simulator or a new sim update release. So yes, it's never boring. It's always changing.
Okay, sounds good. Sounds great. Um, so when we did a bit of the background search into you and JustFlight, I've noticed you've actually been into flight simulation for quite some time. And it started off as a hobby for you, from what I could see. Maybe give us a bit of a sense of your flight simulator journey. When did you get into the hobby? And maybe along the way, were there any flight simulator platforms or maybe even some add-ons that really stood out for you and that inspired you to turn this into a job?
Yeah, so I used to play computer games with my dad, and he was in the Air Force for over 20 years. So I was always around aviation, and we used to play flight simulators together. I think I started with Microsoft Flight Simulator 2000. How old am I now? 37. So yeah, I think I was probably about 12 maybe when I first started playing Microsoft Flight Sim. I've played other sort of aviation related games before then. But yeah, I remember pestering my dad into buying me Microsoft Flight Simulator because, of course, back then it was still very expensive to buy compared to a normal game.
Yeah.
But eventually I managed to persuade him anyway. So yeah, I would have been about 12. And I'm sure, like a lot of people, I spent years just flying the default aircraft. And then probably around 2002, 2004, I started to discover third-party products and aircraft. And then I became a customer of JustFlight. I didn't actually realise that they were so local to where I live at the time. But I was a customer of theirs and bought, I don't know, over at least 10 products, airliners and military aircraft, and played with those a lot as a teenager. And then, 2006, I was leaving education, and my plan was to join the Royal Air Force as a pilot or some sort of aircrew. And I went for the 2 or 3 day selection process, and unfortunately my eyesight was borderline. And the Royal Air Force doesn't take many pilots, so that wasn't an option, unfortunately. So I went looking for some summer work and asked JustFlight if they had anything to keep me busy for the summer, which they said yes. And then 20 years this year, I'm still here.
Long summer.
Yes, very long summer. Yeah, so I started doing some temp work on a project they had at the time for, I think, just FSX had just come out, or was just coming out. Yeah, a bit of temporary summer work, and then that led into something else, and I joined their tech support team. And then about 7 years later, I joined the development side of things, and 20 years later, here I am, still here.
That's amazing. Yeah, that's great. I still remember I was also a customer, well, still am a customer of JustFlight. And at the beginning, I remember you would go to the website, you would order something, but then you would have to wait because it would come in the post in the form of a DVD. And so this brings me to my next question. You've been with JustFlight now for quite some time. When you look back at the company JustFlight as it was then, and you look at it today, I guess the company had to adjust quite a lot to the new market, to the new realities, to different ways of, bringing customers to the product and product to the customers. Do you think the JustFlight from back then is completely different to today, or is the core thing still the same and you just had to adapt certain aspects of the company?
Yeah, so in 20 years, a lot has changed, but at the core, we're still sort of owned and run by the same people. I mean, like I say, I've been there 20 years, but most of my colleagues are people that have been there even longer than me. We've got people that have been there 25, 30 years that founded the company. The owner is still the original owner, going back to, I think we were called the associates before JustFlight. So the core of the business is still very much there. It's still kind of a family type environment. I've worked with the same people for all that time. But yeah, there's been a lot of changes. When I first joined, we had a big building office in sort of town near me, the giant warehouse full of box products and, like you say, shipping them all around the world. We were working in an office 9 to 5, 5 days a week. And then 2015, we sold that and we all work from home now. We still meet up, but yeah, we work from home. No box products now for at least 10 years. But yeah, on my side of things, as well as a shift away from box products to digital, it's also, we've shifted from being primarily a publisher to primarily a developer. We are still a publisher as well. But yeah, I'm very much involved in the development side of things. I think maybe 2013 maybe is when we sort of founded a new development team internally, of which I was one. So that was kind of a real turning point. And then I think fair to say, with following the recent Microsoft Flight Sim, we've kind of ramped things up even more. Probably better known now as a developer. So yeah, it's been a lot of change. But yeah, the core team is still very much the same kind of ethos, the same kind of customer-driven, quality of customer service. All of those sort of values are still at the core of the business, I think.
Okay, very good. Yeah, I wanted to talk to you about the transition from publisher to developer later on. Maybe we can come back to that in a minute. But first of all, I know this is a flight simming podcast and obviously real world aviation podcast. But if you allow me, I would like to ask you just one question about your sister company, Just Trains. How does the relationship work between JustFlight and Just Trains? I guess on paper you are two completely separate companies, but is it possible that, for example, a 3D modeler that you have is one day working on a plane and another day on a train? Is there some overlap between those two companies, or do you keep them completely separate?
Yeah, nowadays completely separate. So when I joined JustFlight, I mean, there's sort of two brands within one company. But yeah, we were much more interconnected years ago, especially because we were sort of primarily a publisher and we had the office. So of course we were all sitting next to each other. But yeah, nowadays, I mean, Alex, who you know well, he now does my equivalent sort of job. So I'm what am I? Head of development, I think is my job title, on the flight side, and he's on the train side. So yeah, day to day, we have no real contact between the teams, and development wise, it's very separate as well. Yeah, I don't think there's really any overlap. Obviously, we get together on team calls and we meet each other face to face at team get-togethers. But yeah, day to day, very separate. Yeah, just keeps things kind of a bit more efficient, really.
Okay. Wow. Interesting. Yeah. So that brings me back to what you've already mentioned, the let's call it the development of JustFlight from a publisher to what I still consider one of the best developers out there. I own several of your products. They are outstanding in my personal opinion. And I can see online the feedback you receive is also very positive. How did that come about? Was this something that developed slowly over time, or was there a point where maybe a meeting or something where it was decided that this should be done? And if so, what was the idea behind the whole concept of turning a publisher into a third-party developer?
Yeah, so I think I do have vague memories of a couple of sort of strategic meetings, but I think we could see that the kind of publishing opportunities were getting less because people could go with, the change from box to digital. it meant that a lot of the developers that would traditionally publish via JustFlight could go direct to the market. So, we were seeing those opportunities dry up a bit, I think. But also, my involvement as well in sort of pushing that along. I was very interested in just being a developer. That was always my interest. And, we had limited control over products as a publisher. You're largely at the kind of beholden to the developer and their choices, which I always found personally a little bit frustrating. So I always wanted to develop our own products from day one and have complete control of that, which I thought, would result in higher quality and more interesting aircraft, etc. So yeah, we made a pretty conscious decision to make that change, and thankfully we did, because the whole market now is very different. I don't think we could have survived as just a publisher. But it's also a lot more rewarding and interesting being a developer, I think. Although, like I say, we do still do both.
Okay. Yeah, well, that's interesting. Yeah, I mean, that brings me actually to the next part of the interview, where I really want to talk a bit more about you as developers. So whenever I see your products, I get the impression that they are not just commercial products, they're really passion products. At least this is the feel I get from whenever I install one of your products and take a first look. I can see the attention to detail is just extraordinary. I mean, there's the famous working coffee maker in the Avro, which
Yeah.
I thought was absolutely inspired. I once read that your sound team actually goes into the real cockpit and records the sound of each and every switch and button one
Yeah.
by one. So these are things that I find really fascinating. But I would imagine as a business, you also have to make business decisions. So how do
Yeah.
you strike this balance? Because I would imagine when you decide which aircraft are we going to do next, you probably have a list of aircraft that you're really passionate about, but then you also have I would imagine, a kind of list that you think would sell well. How do
Yeah.
you strike the balance between commercial interest and, the things you really would love to do yourself?
Yeah, I think that's probably one of the hardest things about what we do. So we're lucky that, yes, we are a company. We need to make a profit. We need to be able to pay people's wages. I think we're probably one of the few developers to have, I think, trying to think now, maybe 20, 25 people employed. A lot of developers are still doing it in their spare time. So yeah, we do have, we have to survive. But luckily, we're not. We don't have to be driven purely by profit, if that makes sense. So we don't have to go out there and pick an Airbus or a Boeing. We don't have to try and pick the best-selling aircraft we can think of. We do have a bit of flexibility there to pick stuff that we're passionate about, that we have an interest in. From a personal point of view, and I know my team, it's quite tricky to motivate yourself to spend 3 years on an aircraft that you have no interest in. So that definitely plays a big factor. And the other part is access. So like you're saying, we, to get the level of quality, the detail that we strive for, we need access to the real aircraft, to record the sounds, to sort of photograph every little panel and every little detail. And that is quite constraining, more and more so as time goes on, finding aircraft that we can actually get access to. So like for the Fokkers, for example, the F28 and the F100, we had to fly over to the Netherlands to visit them over there. We were lucky enough with the F100 to find an engineering company that were doing ground runs on one, so we could record all of that. And then with the 146, we spent the day with the Royal Air Force that used to fly the royal family around in the 146. So we spent the day there, and again, they started up the engines for us. We got to go all over the aircraft and record things. For the A300, I flew over to Toulouse a couple of times to visit the one there in the museum. So, but yeah, it's trying to find aircraft that you can get that kind of access to is pretty limiting as well. So yeah, there's various factors really. Commercials you can't avoid, but we do want to find stuff we're interested in. But there are aircraft that I personally would love to develop, like the Nimrod maritime patrol aircraft that the RAF used to fly. But it's safe to say that that would never justify the costs. So as much as I would love to do it, that's just never going to happen probably. So there are those projects which, if it's purely passion, I would be picking. But you do have to have a bit of a commercial reality as well.
Yeah, I can imagine. It's interesting what you said, that the access you get and that they would even start the engines and stuff. I find that really, really amazing. And I'm glad you have those people that support.
Yeah, we're lucky. It's because aviation's a passion. So, even people in a commercial, engineering or an airline, there are limits obviously to what they'll let you do. But because most of the people in those industries, like yourself, are very passionate about aviation, and a lot of them are very passionate about flight simulation as well. We get access to a lot of things that maybe you wouldn't in other ways. We've had access to aircraft on RAF bases that are still in service. We managed to go and see the RAF Falcon bomber a couple of times, and again they start the engines for us. We got to sit in the cockpit. So yeah, that's a big part of it. And yeah, we're very, very lucky.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. That must be an amazing experience to see these legends like a Vulcan bomber and the
Yeah.
people looking after them, give you full access. I personally,
it's a real perk of the job.
Yeah, that must be really cool.
And on the flip side, we then try and use that to promote what they're up to. So like with the Vulcan, we'll try and sort of make the wider population more aware of what they're doing and how they can be supported as well. So we try and help them out as well.
Okay, that's very cool. Well, the way I see it, I think what you've done as a company, you found a really clever niche that you occupy really well. You quite often have no competition in the terms of products you release. And because the standard is very high, people are not just finding them interesting, but also very, they enjoy the products as well. But do you think, could you imagine a day or a time, maybe at some point in the future, where JustFlight would decide to do something, I don't know, like a Dreamliner or something? Or do you think is that completely off the table?
I can't imagine it. Like you say, you've got the competition aspect. We quite enjoy being, often a little niche corner. But also, again, it's that interest, that passion thing we came back to. So, there's no denying that a Dreamliner or an A380, they are and always will be the commercially the best-selling, most appealing products. But they also take the longest. So, Dreamliner to the standard that we do things would be easily sort of a 4-year project. And that's challenging both from a kind of commercial point of view and also just from a sort of sanity point of view. We're just sort of coming towards the end of the Fokker 100 project at the moment. And that's probably as modern as we'll go, at least for the foreseeable future. And that's highlighted to us how challenging that is already. It's not quite up there with an Airbus in terms of fly-by-wire logic, that kind of thing, but, it's a modern-ish cockpit with glass cockpit displays and flight management system and LNAV and VNAV, and that's been it's been challenging, to put it nicely. So we're looking forward to a bit of a break from that. And then we've got the A300B4, of course, which is complex in the sense of being a big airliner, big wide body airliner, but again, the lack of complex flight management system, glass cockpit displays, makes it a lot more manageable in other ways. So I can't see us going down the modern airliner route. Never say never. But I don't ever really want to be developing a 737 or an A320 personally. Other people are doing a really good job of that already. But yeah, we'll see. It's the other tricky thing that we're finding at the moment is, there's a lot more developers out there. Some of them are kind of proven themselves, some not so much yet. And a lot of developers are sort of earmarking a project. They're sort of saying, yeah, we're working on a 787. And it sort of may or may not come out. It may or may not be out in 5 years' time, but it kind of makes you a little bit wary then of starting your own.
Yeah.
So that's the other kind of difficult thing I think at the moment is kind of having the confidence to go ahead with a project that might take you 3 or 4 years.
Yeah.
When you're not quite sure what other people are up to.
Yeah, no, I fully understand. I mean, the good thing for you guys is, like I said, I think the perception of the community is very positive. I'm pretty sure if you would release an aircraft that's already on the market, people would still at least take a very good look at it. So,
Yeah, I mean,
that's
the A300 is one of those where, of course, some people, when we announced that, were sort of questioning why, when you've got the INI-built one already out there, although the A300B4 we're doing is quite different to the A300-600. So there are times where we'll have an overlap. I'm trying to think if there's any others. We're doing the Tornado at the moment, Tornado GR1. Again, there's a bit of an overlap there with the India Foxtrot one. So yeah, we're not kind of too worried about direct competition if we think we can do a better job or it's slightly different, It's hard to avoid competition, and the F28 is kind of the other extreme where we might not commission something quite that niche again, given the amount of work that's required nowadays to do it properly. The expectations of the community are so high now that it would probably be quite hard to justify doing something like an F28 again now. So yeah, it's trying to find that middle ground, really.
Yeah, it must be difficult. I mean, personally, I'm really looking forward to the Fokkers, the F70, F100. When I started off in aviation, the company I worked for actually had a fleet of them, and I never got to fly them, but they were part of our fleet, and I know a lot of people who used to fly them, and they still speak very fondly about those aircraft. So I personally cannot wait to get my hands on those.
I think the Fokker 100 is probably going to be the most sort of the widest appeal aircraft that we've done so far, I think. Again, being kind of a fairly modern airliner, but it's still nice and quirky. We like aircraft that are a bit interesting to operate and a bit different. And the Fokker definitely fits in that category. I think it'll be, all the people out there that got Boeing and Airbus experience, I think they'll find the Fokker quite interesting because it's a little bit of both, really. It's got a lot of Airbus about it. Sort of developed sort of similar time to the Airbus A320 family, and the same sort of people involved, a lot of the same concepts in there. But then, it's got other things that are kind of a bit more Boeing with kind of the auto throttle system. So yeah, it's a fun aircraft to fly.
Yeah. I'm really looking forward to it. Anyway, as we slowly but surely reaching the end of our time with you, I wanted to get a bit of an idea how you look at the wider picture of the flight sim world as it is today. I think we can both agree there was a period of time when it all seemed a bit stagnant. FSX was hanging around for absolute ages. Microsoft pulled out. There was P3D and X-Plane, and then even Dovetail, if you remember, they tried their luck with Flight Sim. Then DCS was launched, and then Aerofly was launched. And it all seemed like, to me, that time was, I don't know, the hobby seemed very dispersed. But then when Microsoft came back, I think it really changed the whole hobby. And now, especially since we have consoles being part of the community, which from what I hear make up a big part of the customer base, I personally think flight simming has really redeemed itself and is attracting new customers. Do you see this in the same way, and do you feel this as a company?
Yes, Microsoft Flight Sim 2020 being released completely changed the industry. Like I say, I joined the company just as it was transitioning from 2004 to FSX. And then that was, 3 or 4 years of life in that. And then, as you say, Microsoft walked away. The P3D came along, but was never an entertainment product, which limited its sort of appeal. Then we had X-Plane 11 that did very well for a short time. And like you say, Aerofly and other bits. But it's quite it was a difficult time for the whole of sort of the development community, third-party community. Like say, things got stagnant, sales dropped off. It's a difficult time, I think. So Microsoft Flight Sim coming along, which was a surprise to everyone, including developers. That's massive difference. How long's it been now? Was it 6 years since that came out? Yeah, that's completely changed prospects for developers. It's resulted in a lot of new developers coming along as well. They're doing some very, very nice products. But yeah, it's saved the industry really, third-party industry for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's much wider appeal. So the user base of Microsoft Flight Sim far exceeds anything we've had before. And like you say, the console aspect of that as well. Yeah, it's been very good.
Is it because I know you have a background in development and coding and stuff? Is it actually quite difficult to create a software or a product that has to work on console and PC at the same time? Is there a big difference between something you create just for PC or for both platforms? Is that a huge amount of extra work?
No, thankfully not. Or at least not for the aircraft that we do. The whole idea that sort of Microsoft Azobo had was to make it sort of on the face of it, so there's no difference, so that you develop for PC and it will automatically kind of work on Xbox. There are differences. We have to make sure that we cater very well for Xbox controller layouts and things like that. There's a bit of work involved in that. Although of course you can use those controls on PC as well. I think the biggest issue we've found is performance. So Xbox, to support Xbox, you have to be supporting Xbox S and X. I'm not really a big console person, but Xbox S has got pretty outdated, limited hardware in it. So, a very complex airliner, it's quite a struggle to get that performing nicely on an Xbox S. So that's quite constraining. But other than that, no, it's fairly seamless, really, which is obviously good news for developers.
Yeah, that is good news.
Depending on what kind of product you do, of course. So, Phoenix A320, for example, they can't release on console because of the nature of the way they've developed their product. But the aircraft that we've done, at least so far, it's not been a problem.
Very good, very good. Well, we've pretty much reached the end of the time allocated to us. I've written down so many questions. We only got through a handful. It's a real shame. Maybe in the far future, if we can have you back and talk a bit more, that'd be great. But before I let you go, there's one topic I really would like to hear your opinion about, and that, of course, is AI. We all know AI is very good at coding. I've recently seen a video where a plugin with AI created a 3D model in Blender and actually did a pretty good job. Are these developments something that worries you as a third-party developer, or do you think it's something that you can actually use to make your life easier? So it's going to be a positive and not a negative.
Yeah, it's hard to tell kind of long term, but certainly short term, it's just another useful tool, really. I mean, I use some AI tools for programming, although it's not quite as intelligent as I think maybe it appears. I can spend a long time trying to get an AI bit of software to give me the answer that I need. Often I'll end up just abandoning it and writing it myself from scratch. So it can be very useful and it can save time, but in its current form, it's not quite intelligent enough to kind of concern me or to give me the opportunity to replace a coder with AI. It's more an aid at the moment, really. I mean, I don't know because I've not seen the video you're referring to, so I'm not sure kind of how much potential there is on the 3D side of things, on the artwork side of things. Of course, the big factor with flight simulation is the attention to detail. The accuracy required is incredibly high. So, that might be a bit of a limiting factor there as well. You'd have to get to the point of AI being sort of very capable. But yeah, I think we're still kind of early days, really, aren't we, with AI? I think it's still very much kind of an emerging technology, isn't it? So it's a bit of a kind of wait and see situation. But yeah, at least in the moment we do use it for coding. But yeah, it's not going to replace our coders anytime soon from what we can see.
Okay, very interesting. Well, I'm afraid that's all we have time for. First, two things really. First of all, thanks so much for taking the time. I know you're a very busy man to spend a bit of time with us and to give us these insights into your life and your work and into JustFlight. And I'm going to give you now a very cheeky plug. If JustFlight will ever make a DC-10 or a TriStar, you have one very happy customer. I'll leave
Yeah,
that
I would love to
to
do
you.
both. Yeah, both of them are certainly ones. Again, I mean that highlights the challenge, you see, because I think other developers have already potentially announced their own. I think IndyBuilds have already announced TriStar, haven't they? But yeah, again, it's there. I'd love to do a TriStar. That's one of the aircraft I did back in the FSX prepared days. TriStar Professional. So it certainly interests me. So yeah, it might well be one that we look at.
Oh, I would be super happy about that.
Yeah, it
Any,
very much fits into our category of quirky aircraft.
Exactly, and it's a beautiful aircraft,
It is,
absolutely
yeah.
amazing aircraft. Yeah. Anyway, Martyn, once again, a big thank you for your time, for being so open and honest, and for this amazing interview. I wish you and, of course, the rest of the team all the best for the future. Good luck with the Fokker 70-100 launch. I'm sure it's going to be an amazing product. Is there anything else you want to say to our listeners before we say goodbye?
Just thanks for the support, really. I think I'll say in any interview I do that we really appreciate the community's support, but also the feedback. So you'll usually find me on forums and Discord and YouTube, engaging directly with the community. Any questions you have or any feedback or suggestions, aircraft suggestions. I'm constantly reading and directly taking that on board. Customers will often kind of suggest a feature and 2 days later we've added it in there. So yeah, if you've got any kind of feedback, positive or negative, then try and get in touch.
Okay, perfect. Well, Martyn, all the best. Thank you for your time, and I won't keep you any longer. Thank you.
Cheers. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you, Stefan, for the great interview. It was super interesting to get a little bit is an understatement, to get really a deep dive behind the scene of a company I think almost everybody with a little bit an understanding in flight simulation is familiar with. Certainly JustFlight, one of the names on the market. And also, Stefan, yeah, thank you for your connection here to make this happen. It was really a great interview. Congratulations also to you. And certainly thank you for Martyn.
Yeah,
To Martyn.
I really enjoyed it. Very cool interview with someone who has a lot of experience of the industry, and very open, very transparent. This is always very important to us, that we get a good feel of what is actually going on with these companies and what they're thinking and how they are reacting to certain things. So for me, super interesting. I'm really glad Martyn took the time to talk to us. I think it gives us and the viewers a better picture of how third-party development works, and what it is like to be at JustFlight right now. Unfortunately, there were so many questions I wanted to ask, but we just ran out of time. I wanted to talk to him about the Learjet 45 and all that stuff, but maybe we can convince him to come back at some point in the future. That'd be really great.
Stefan, I think you know my rule of thumb. When I prepare a podcast interview and I cover about 50% of the questions, then it was a good podcast, a really good. If I used up 100%, I was 100% underprepared. So this is my rule of thumb. But I mean, I think this was one of your first podcast interviews. Is this correct?
It was the first. I've never interviewed
It was
anyone.
your premiere. I mean, this was awesome. This was great. But as I said, this is my rule of thumb, and you will get used to it. But it was really, it was an impressive interview, and I think also it make some of the, so to say, JustFlight enjoyers more appreciative what they are dealing with. I mean, to fly to Toulouse to to get an inside view or also the sounds of an A300, it's quite impressive. You know how much effort it takes or how much dedication that they get into their planes. It's for me, it's crazy. It's mind-boggling. It's great.
Yeah, but I think it shows. It shows. Like I said, I've bought their products, and you can tell that this is a company that cares about detail, that wants to get it right. And so to me, all this effort pays off, because you end up with a product that feels just like the real thing. As Microsoft has told us for decades, as real as it gets. So for me, I've never had a bad experience with any of their products. They've always been great. I've always had a lot of fun with them. And like I said in the interview, the Fokker 100 is an aircraft I have a lot of fond memories for. So I'm really looking forward to that.
Maybe one of your next, so to say, YouTube flights here on a YouTube channel will be with a Fokker 100. Let's see.
Yeah, definitely. Once that thing is out, we're going to have a lot of Fokker 100 flights.
Well, I hope the listeners enjoyed the interview as I did. It was really a brilliant interview, Stefan. Certainly a super insightful question from Martyn's side. And if you think out there that you would be a great guest for Aviation-Quest.cc, or nobody or anybody in your community would fit, then aviation@aviation-quest.cc is our internet. Is our email. You also find me, Jürgen Reis, at LinkedIn. It's also an easy way to get in touch with us. Other than that, we got a homepage, certainly the YouTube channel. Looking forward for comments, and I am looking forward already for, it's the list of guests is interesting, and it seems we are also the number shows we are growing. This was a message from your side. We are growing on all channels. So thank you also to the listeners, and certainly we still enjoy a follow us or a like us.
Yeah, exactly. Also from my side, thank you to everyone who's listening. Like Jürgen said, I mean, this is still a small podcast because we've just started, but on every platform we are growing. Thank you to all the people that have agreed to be with us. Martyn was the first person from the world of flight simming. So far, we've only had people from the world of real world aviation. So that was really great. And but we have more interviews lined up with both real world aviators and people from the flight simming community. So if that interests you, then the usual social media stuff, like and subscribe. And we look forward to seeing you in the next one.
Thank you for listening to Aviation-Quest.cc, Stories from Above. For more information about this episode and everything we do, visit our homepage, aviation-quest.cc. We appreciate your time and support, and we'd love to have you back for the next episode. Until then, stay safe, stay curious, and keep your passion for aviation flying high.